Hello everybody, my name is Kat and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things horror. Happy New Year! And I just want to start off by giving a huge thank you to all of you who have been watching my videos this past year, who have subscribed. It was funny, I woke up Christmas morning actually to discover that I had reached 1,000 subscribers. It's a bit cliched to say, but when you're starting off making a YouTube channel, you're never really sure like if anyone is going to watch it, let alone like over 1,000 people that have watched my videos within the past year. So I remember thinking that it was like crazy that even 10 people wanted to subscribe and listen to what I had to say about horror movies. So to reach that milestone is incredible. I'm incredibly grateful to all of you who again have been watching my videos, have been commenting. It's been so much fun these past few months to see people commenting, and it's getting to the point where now I'm recognizing people's usernames. So again, thank you all so much. That was the best gift that I got at Christmas this year. And it just makes me even more excited to keep talking about horror in this new year. And that's what this video is about. So let's get into today's video. We are going to be talking about 2025 horror films. What I was actually hoping to do today was to give a review on The Damned because it looks like really interesting and it's a folk horror film, which is one of my favorite subgenres. And it's wintry, and from what I've read, it just has a lot of like dread to it. Seemed like a really good like January, middle of winter horror film. Unfortunately, it's not currently playing at any of the theaters in my area because they would rather fill the screens with Wicked sing-along. No shade to Wicked, I actually did enjoy that movie. So since there's not really any new horror out right now, I thought I would at least come on here and talk about what releases I'm excited for in this new year. And there are a lot of films I'm looking forward to. It seems like we're going to be getting a lot of sequels, but we're also getting some new titles as well. So let's jump into it. And please let me know in the comments down below what films you are looking forward to most this year. I don't know, I just have a good feeling about 2025. Like, I just feel like this is going to be a really good year for film. Just the names of filmmakers and actors and people that are involved in these properties. I just have a good feeling about this year's lineup. So I guess we'll just go quarter by quarter. January seems to be starting off pretty strong, and that's not always the norm. First major film that's coming out that I'm very excited for is Leigh Whannell's version of The Wolfman. I love Leigh Whannell. I've loved Leigh Whannell since the first Saw movie.
I don't give a crap if you covered yourself in peanut butter and had a 15-hooker gangbang.
Him and James Wan are a great team. I would say that I've pretty much enjoyed everything that they've come up with together. And then Leigh Whannell as a solo writer-director. I loved Upgrade. Upgrade is just this great modern day techno action film, and I think it does a lot for the modest sized budget that it has. So I really enjoyed that film, and then I really enjoyed his version of The Invisible Man. It's been interesting to see the way that he's incorporated technology into these two movies. Wolfman doesn't seem like it's going to go on that path, although it might, which would be very interesting to see how he brings that in. But yeah, I just thought his version of The Invisible Man was so unique with, again, using technology to create this invisible suit. Obviously the social commentary that came with it as well. It was one of those films that I feel like came out and was really tapping into, I think, the zeitgeist and some of these issues that society was dealing with at the time, but doing it in a way that didn't feel like it was bashing you over the head with any kind of like messaging. It was still a lot of fun. So I've really enjoyed his solo work, and I'm very curious to see what he's going to do with Wolfman and what kind of themes we're going to be getting from the trailers and previews. It seems like fatherhood is definitely going to be a very large theme in this movie. I was lucky enough to be able to meet him and his wife at a horror festival one year. They were the nicest people. They were so sweet and so down to earth. And I know that him and his wife are writing this film together, so it makes sense that there's going to be themes around like marriage and parenthood here. That I'm really excited to see the creature design as well. I know he's like already come out and said that people might be kind of angry with the way the design looks because it's not what we might be expecting, but that makes me like even more excited to see it. I've enjoyed the trailers and the previews for it. I do feel like the trailers haven't made me like as hyped for the movie as I would like to be. Like, I feel like I'm more hyped because it's a Leigh Whannell film. I'm trying to go in with like modest expectations. And then the next January film that I am so excited for is Presence, directed by Steven Soderbergh. So I've been going through like a weird Soderbergh phase. Over the holiday break, I fell into a Steven Soderbergh wormhole. He's such a fascinating director. Like, this is someone that has worked in both film and television, and he's dabbled in like interactive media as well, and working in various kinds of genres. Like, it's kind of crazy to think that the same guy that directed Sex, Lies, and Videotapes, also directed Aaron Brockovich, also directed Ocean's 11, also directed Contagion, also directed Magic Mike, also directed Behind the Candelabra, also directed The Nick, and now he has this new film, Presence, that's coming out, and he has another film in a completely different genre that's also coming out in March, I believe, of this year. Soderbergh to me is such an enigma in the way that he can just like kind of come into all of these different genres and working with films in various budgets as well. And also the fact that he directs it, but he also does all of his own cinematography and he does all of his own editing. And apparently he works like super fast and is just creating things constantly. I wish I had his energy levels. So all that to say that I'm super pumped for Presence and for a new Soderbergh horror film. Also just the way that he filmed it. I know that this is supposed to be a sort of haunted house story, but we're going to be seeing everything through the first person perspective of the ghost. And then I guess the whole premise is that the family that's living in the haunted house are like complete nut jobs. So I'm not sure if this is going to be a thing where it's like we're following this ghost, but the ghost isn't the scariest thing in the house. The scariest thing in the house is the people that are living there. That's kind of fun to flip the tropes around, and it sounds hilarious. And I think knowing Soderbergh, he'll probably find a way to balance humorous moments with probably really batshit, insane, freaky moments as well. So I'm so excited to see Presence. Also coming out towards the end of January, early February is Companion. Companion is the latest film written and directed by Zach Kreger, I think is how you say his name, who is most well known for being the writer and director of Barbarian. I'll confess, I'm probably like one of the 0.5% of people in the world that was not as crazy about Barbarian as a lot of people were. I was one of those people where it was totally into the first act. I didn't even mind where it went in the second act. It was just kind of the third act for me. It just didn't quite gel for me, but I know people really love this movie. That being said, I am excited to see Companion. I'm excited to see what he's going to do with this new film. And, you know, even though Barbarian wasn't necessarily my thing, I can appreciate a filmmaker that is at least willing to try something different and is not afraid to pull the rug out, essentially, from us as audiences. Like, I don't feel like we see that a lot, especially in like mainstream Hollywood films, and I'm very intrigued by the premise of this one. I love the trailer for it and how the trailer starts off with like the same studio that brought you The Notebook. He's really good with his promotional material. I remember this from Barbarian as well, right? That he's only giving you like a little slice of what the movie is going to be, and then you're just sitting there questioning like, what is going to happen? What is this? So I do love the trailer with the two of them just like sitting at the table, and then like her arm gets set on fire. The promos for Companion are giving me like Fresh vibes. If any of you saw that movie Fresh on Hulu with Sebastian Stan, it's giving me like a very similar vibe to that. Like even the house location looks kind of similar. And this is one where I'm also excited just because of the cast. Like I really enjoy Sophie Thatcher. I really enjoyed her performance in Heretic from last year. Jack Quaid, obviously The Boys. He was also in one of the new Scream movies. So it's exciting to see them in another genre piece. So then we're moving into February. I think probably the big release in February is going to be The Monkey, the new Oz Perkins film. Oz Perkins obviously becoming a big name in the horror genre this year because of Longlegs. Similar to Barbarian, you know, I was pretty lukewarm on Longlegs. There were aspects of it that I really loved a lot. The narrative was a little... This was another one that again just kind of fell apart for me a bit in the third act. I am excited about The Monkey for a couple of reasons. One, this is based off of a Stephen King short story, so it'll be interesting to see how Oz Perkins adapts something. I don't believe he's adapted a story before. I think he's always written original films. So you have the Stephen King involvement, and then you also have James Wan, who of course saw Conjuring, Insidious, who's on board as a producer of the film as well. So curious to see if we see his influence anywhere in this movie. Also curious to see what it is about this story specifically that attracted James Wan and Oz Perkins to want to adapt a full-length feature version of it. The other reason why I'm excited about it is just judging by the brief scenes that I've seen in the trailers, it kind of feels like it's not going to be as like dark and depressing as A Long Legs. It feels like it might have a bit of a sense of humor to it, and I feel like Oz Perkins would be really good at doing like dark humor, horror comedies, or just like horror films that have like dark humor in them. When you watch interviews with him, he kind of has that like dry, deadpan sense of humor. I feel like he would pull off that type of film really well. I don't know if that's what The Monkey is going to be. As far as other February releases, there is Hard Eyes, I think it's called. That is a Valentine's Day slasher film. I had no idea that this was a film that was even coming out. I was with my friends the other day seeing Baby Girl. As we were leaving, I saw the poster for Hard Eyes and I was like, oh, a slasher film. As a slasher girly, I'm always excited when we get a new film in that subgenre. And then we start moving more into the springtime and we're getting films like Sinners. I've seen the trailer for this a couple of times. Visually, it looks stunning. This is written and directed by Ryan Coogler, who directed the Black Panther films. He also directed the Creed series. This one also is starring Michael B. Jordan as well. And I'm curious to see how they're going to work within the genre. The vibes that I get from the trailer are that this is like small town, everyone knows each other kind of town, everyone goes to church on Sundays kind of town, that is then haunted by some evil that is either coming into the town or is called upon the town in some way. So I feel like one of those films, from what I've read, it also seems like this is going to be a vampire story as well. Like the evil is going to have something to do with vampirism. So that is really why I'm excited about this movie because, you know, we went through our whole like romantic vampire phase. And so I feel like we haven't had like a really good traditionally scary vampire film in a long time. I think Eggers' Nosferatu is like our introduction back into like the more seedy vampire tale. Like I don't have a problem with the romantic vampires. I think I just got burnt out on them. So I'm ready to see like different kinds of vampire tales and truly making the figure like monstrous again and scary again. So that's what I'm hoping we're going to get with Sinners. Also in the spring, we are getting The Ritual, which is a film about two priests, one who's questioning his faith, the other that's dealing with past trauma, and they have to get together to do an exorcism on a possessed girl. Stop me if you've heard this story somewhere before. Normally I would not be excited about us getting yet another exorcism film. I don't know why we've been getting so many of these like weird exorcism movies and why they've all seemed to star Russell Crowe. But I am excited about this one only because it has Al Pacino in it, but really because it has Dan Stevens in it. And I feel like Dan Stevens is really becoming like one of our like iconic horror actors. If you think of like last year with Abigail and Cuckoo, he's just one of these actors that I feel like takes on really interesting projects and then is able to really transform himself into whatever role it is that he's doing. So this is one where I'm only sold because of the actors that are involved with it. And I'm hoping we're going to get something a little bit different than just like run-of-the-mill exorcism story. Okay, checking my list, and it looks like this is where we start getting into a lot of the sequels that are going to be coming out this year. So kicking things off is the next installment in the Final Destination franchise. Final Destination Bloodlines, as they're calling it. I love the Final Destination movies, right? Those were staples for me as a preteen in the 2000s. And how can you like not love them? Like, sure, they're not like cinematic masterpieces. They're so much fun. And just to go in and see all the crazy creative ways that they're going to kill people. And there are just like moments from the Final Destination films that just stick in my brain. How many of you have been driving on a highway and gotten stuck behind a truck with a bunch of logs behind it, or even just a truck with a bunch of stuff roped to the back of it, and you're not thinking of that scene from Final Destination 2. Or there's that other scene in number 2 with the mom that gets stuck in the elevator. I'm pretty sure my paranoia about elevator doors and this weird thing I have where every time an elevator opens, I have to like quickly get inside, like just like jump into the elevator as quickly as possible. I'm pretty sure that phobia came from Final Destination 2. I mean, I love the first two. I also really like the third one as well. You know, the later films like after that, like, not my favorite, admittedly, but I can't deny that I'm not excited to have a new Final Destination film. To kick off the summer, like, that seems like it's gonna be a good time, and I want to say that some of the original creative team is coming back for this one. I might be wrong about that. The next sequel is one where I do know that the original creative team is coming back, and that is 28 years later. This is probably my most hyped film for 2025. That was not the case until I saw the trailer that they released for it. That trailer is so eerie and creepy with that, like, what is it, that poem that they're saying, and just that like tone of voice. It feels very like claustrophobic and very dystopian. I do enjoy the previous films in the franchise. I won't necessarily say that they're like my all-time favorites, but I do appreciate that they're one of like the few zombie films where the zombies are actually creepy, very much seem like a very real threat. Those things are creepy and they run after you and they run very fast. And just the original creative team coming back with director Danny Boyle and writer Alex Garland, that alone is enough to sell it for me. Never mind the fact that you also have a lot of like acting heavyweights with like Ralph Fiennes and of course Cillian Murphy. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with this world. As far as the other sequels that we're going to be getting in summertime, you know, we have a sequel to Megan coming out. We also have a maybe sequel, requel, reboot of I Know What You Did Last Summer. I have a mild curiosity. I'm not the most excited about them. I actually really did enjoy the first Megan. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to, but I thought it was actually a really well-written film that had a lot of great themes around technology, but mostly like family and familial connections and things tied up together well. So I'm not quite sure where they're gonna take the sequel to Megan. And then as far as like I Know What You Did Last Summer, it's not my favorite Kevin Williamson franchise. I enjoyed the first one for what it is. I haven't enjoyed any of the other sequels that have come out. Yeah, this is like one of those like sequel reboots where I'm like, I just don't know if it's like that necessary. We'll see. I mean, if it can be like a fun slasher film for the summer, great. We also have new Conjuring and Insidious films coming out this year. The Conjuring film is, I think, the fourth film in the like traditional series. I know the Conjuring universe has all of its different offshoots. This is supposed to be the fourth one with the Warrens involved. I enjoyed the first two Conjurings. I don't know if I've actually seen the third one. The offshoots of the Conjuring universe have not always been my favorites, so I'm not that excited about this fourth film. I feel like I need to go back and like revisit the rest of the films. And then the Insidious film, like another one where I'm like, the first film was really great, and then I feel like I just keep losing quality in like story and character as the sequels go on. Like the last Insidious film that we got, I think in 2023, what was it, The Red Door? All I remember is that I didn't really like it. So maybe they can redeem the franchise. I don't know. Also, wasn't The Red Door supposed to be like the last film in that franchise? Like, why are we getting another one? And then going from sequels that I'm not that excited about to a sequel that I am really excited about is Saw 11 in October. Now we're getting into like the fall releases. Again, like Final Destination, Saw is just like one of those franchises that has a lot of nostalgia for me. Unlike Final Destination and unlike a lot of other horror franchises, like the Saw franchise, with the exception of films like Jigsaw, I really like love all of the Saw movies. I don't even mind Spiral. I would say like Saw 1 through 6, 1 through 7 is probably my sweet spot. I love them. I love the like twisty storylines. I love how like they just keep adding more and more to the plot, and again, things just keep getting more convoluted as you go, but somehow they always manage to like bring it together in a really like satisfying way. And I feel like the majority of us couldn't agree that the last Saw movie was actually like really well done, and it was a lot of fun. And I know that film was supposed to be set between Saw 1 and 2. I'm not sure what they're doing with this film, if they're going to set it between like 2 and 3 or how they're going to go about it. Saw is a franchise that like I feel like I'll never get sick of it. Like, yeah, just keep giving me sequels every year. I'm okay with it. Also in the fall, in October, we get The Black Phone 2. The Black Phone was another film that, for the most part, I enjoyed it. I can't say it was like my favorite of the year that it came out. I feel like the premise that they had in the first film, I feel like that premise worked a little bit better in the short story, just because I guess you got a sense of like urgency in reading the short story that you didn't quite have in the film. I remember in the short story, the main kid being super close to dying of just like starvation and sleep deprivation, all of these like horrible things that were happening to him. Whereas I remember we didn't quite have that same like threat level in the film. So as an adaptation, like I kind of preferred the short story, but with this new sequel and then expanding out on the universe, you know, I'm curious to see where they will go for it. I think Ethan Hawke is coming back. He was great in that movie. He was definitely my favorite part of the first film. Then finally rounding out my list for my most anticipated horror films of 2025. And one of those films is The Bride, the Maggie Gyllenhaal adaptation of The Bride of Frankenstein. I love Maggie Gyllenhaal. I love her previous work. I'm so excited that she chose to take on The Bride of Frankenstein as her next project. After like 28 years later, this is definitely my second most hyped film of the year. I am so excited to see what she's going to do with this property. This same year, supposedly, we are also going to get Guillermo del Toro's version of Frankenstein. I just love him as a filmmaker in general. I love the way that he's able to combine horror with magical realism and having these very whimsical fairy tales that are not afraid to be violent and not afraid to really tackle the darkness in humanity and human nature, and how oftentimes like the humans are the more monstrous ones than the actual monster creature. And I know from teaching Del Toro to my students that Frankenstein is a huge influence on him. I know it was one of those movies that just like stuck with him as a kid and what inspired him to become a filmmaker and really inspired his love for monsters. So I'm very excited to see what he's going to do it. I feel like it's going to be a very like personal film for him just because of that connection that he has with the original Frankenstein. So yeah, The Bride and the Del Toro Frankenstein I am so excited for. I'm gonna guess that we're probably gonna get these films later in the year. So that'll be a really great way to end out the year, I think. Those are all the horror films that I'm looking forward to the most in 2025. Again, please let me know what you are looking forward to in the comments down below, and I will see you in a couple of weeks for The Wolfman. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time.